Welcome to the Politics of Everything. I'm Amber Daines, your host and podcast producer. This is a half hour of power, a podcast dropping every week where I unpack the politics of everything, from money to motherhood, nutrition to narcissism, startups to secularism, the environment, quality, and much, much more. Our guests are seasoned in the field or topic of their choice, even if you've not heard of them yet. This is a non-partisan show. So while I love exploring varied views and get a buzz from a healthy debate of ideas, this is not a purely blue, white, green program. Please subscribe, tune in and enjoy the politics of everything. Much is made of intergenerational wars, so to speak. For the first time, we now have 4 generations working together, or at least having some participation in paid work. And when we're talking about these generations, we know them as boomers, Gen X, Gen Y or millennials, and the youngest group, Gen Z. Each one has been shaped by their external circumstances, their values of the time and how they were raised, and of course major world events from wars to recessions, growing up in a pandemic, for example. Many younger people are fueled by social media and feel no shame or fear in being openly disgusted at certain things, having opinions, or saying things are old school when these power brokers of the past are kind of changing the dynamic as well. Big issues like climate change and obviously how we deal with things like socioeconomics and personal well-being are all different to different generations. Older workers may feel like they've been duped by climbing the corporate ladder for decades and may no longer feel relatable despite their wisdom, experiences, achievements and status. It's quite a time to be alive and working. Today, my guest is Yashika Nayyar, who is the founder of It's Simple Club, a bespoke consultancy that works with businesses to build healthier, happier workplaces and individuals to take control of their careers and life. It's that simple, she says. She's a passionate communicator and advocate for greater understanding across generations, and she's presented to a range of companies and organisations about intergenerational workplace communication and engagement. She's a high-performing sales professional with over 5 years of experience in B2B and B2C sales. Yashika has a degree in community services, and her key areas of expertise include intergenerational workplace communication and training, and what makes Gen Z and millennials click and how to engage with them, understanding baby boomers and decoding this for younger people. She's also authored a book, Walk My Talk, unpacking some of the lingo that can elevate intergenerational communications, and I warmly welcome her to the Politics of Everything.
Thank you, Amber. Thank you for having me.
Podcasting remotely can be challenging, but it doesn't have to be. Since day one of the Politics of Everything, I have relied on Zencastr's all-in-one solution to make the process quick and painless, the way it should be for those of us who just love great content and want to get our ideas out into the world. If you know me, I'm obsessed with quality in terms of my guests, my sound, and everything about my show has to be great the first time. I'm time poor. It's so easy to use Zencastr. I'm not tech savvy and you don't need to be either. There's nothing to download. Just click on the link and off we go. Zencastr is all about making your podcasting experience easy, and with everything from local recording to automatic post-productions now in their toolkit, you don't have to leave your browser to get that episode done, and done fast. I have a special offer for you, and hopefully you can experience what I have with Zencastr. Go to zencastr.com/pricing and use my VIP code, the Politics of Everything, all lowercase and one word, to get 30% off your first 3 months of Zencastr Professional. How good is that? I want you to have the same easy experiences I do for all my podcasting and content needs. It's time to share your story. This is a great conversation, but I do want to start with a question I ask all my guests. What did you want to be as a kid, like young you, and did you actually achieve that in some way?
Okay. I think when I was a kid, all I wanted was be great, right? But back then, my idea of greatness was all about, having power, position, money. And
Yep.
it changed.
That's pretty typical, I think, when you're kind of a younger kid and you're ambitious, although some people want to be like an astronaut or, ballerina or something like that.
It was really funny because, every time I'd go watch a movie and say if the main character in the movie is a lawyer, I'd come out of that movie and I want to be a lawyer. It was like I wanted to be everything, but more so I wanted to be great. But I didn't quite understand what great was back then. But yeah, I think for me, the idea of being something was being great, really.
That's excellent. I love that, and thank you for sharing that with us. So, in your job, in your business, if you like, how do you go about helping professionals who seek more harmony and success in the workplace? Tell us a little bit about your consultancy and what it can do for people as they're navigating intergenerational workplaces.
Look, I believe everything is quite simple. So is the name of my business. It's Simple Club. And how I'll help other people is see the simpler perspective. Because what we do is, whether it's at workplaces or whether it's in our personal lives, we tend to complicate things. But actually, everything is really simple. So, what I do is I step in and I help them to see the problems in a more simpler perspective and also find solutions that are simpler, but also that's going to have a long lasting effect.
That's interesting, isn't it? Because we have made it a very much a complex issue. And I think if you, all you have to do is open up the media and Google intergenerational workplaces, and it's often about the conflicts and things like that.
Yeah.
What are some of the myths or errors in your mind around intergenerational communication that you try to minimize or dispel completely?
I think the first one is when different generations think they don't need each other. It's like when younger people think that baby boomers are outdated. They're not outdated. Sometimes their methods can be a little outdated, but we still need their wisdom. And so is with someone who's older who might think that, oh, they don't have anything to learn from someone who's younger. So the biggest thing and the most simple thing is that we need each other, whether it's someone who's older than us or someone who's younger than us. So that is, I think, one of the biggest myths that, that's kind of the core of this problem that we need
Yeah,
to.
I could see how that becomes, yeah. And then the more you say it, it almost feels like it normalizes it, and people, there's a lot of assumptions in this, right? Like we just
Yes.
put people in boxes, if you like.
And we will always have, and this is something that we don't understand, and or the power of it, that no matter what age you are at, you will always have someone who's going to be older than you and someone who's going to be younger than you. So there will always be a generational gap. So someone who's younger right now, they might feel invincible, but there is going to come a time in their life when they're going to feel the same way as someone who was older than them back in the days felt. And then they're going to realize, oh, actually, I could have understood that better. But if we are a little bit more, proactive in thinking that how our actions are going to have an effect on different generations, or how exactly can we find a solution that's going to be helpful for the generation that we're dealing with, it's just going to be so much easier. It's that simple. Understand and no judgment.
Yeah, I think the no judgment piece is the one that I think if we start there, obviously that's a great framework and mindset rather than having like these preconceived ideas or assuming that you know already what that generation is going to do, how they're going to respond to you, and I guess what their beliefs are. Because even within any cohort, you'll have people with different political beliefs, different thoughts, different experiences. They can't necessarily all be lumped into
Yeah.
one way of thinking, which is, I think, the easy way to look at it, but is often, undermines the success of an intergenerational workplace. Look, we do know we live in a fairly ageist society in Australia and in the Western world at both ends. I remember, I'm Gen X, but I remember when I was starting off my career feeling like people thought I was too young to be good at my job, that I didn't have enough experience. And now it's sort of that, as one of the older people in a workplace, it can often feel like people are judging you for outdated ideas or old ways of thinking. I think for Gen Zs, coming through, they're probably a different generation. They're much more vocal about the fact that they have a lot to offer, and I do applaud them for that. But they can obviously be overlooked for promotions because we might think that they need to have a certain amount of years in the workforce or, have not enough experience, if you like. How can we address some of those kind of prejudices, if you like? And what do you talk about when you talk to people about this? Because it's obviously something that's been like that for many, many years.
Yeah. And I think before I jump to that, I will share my personal story. So I've been working with C-level executives for quite some time now. And 99% of the time, these people are older than me, right? And for the first 3 to 4 years, I was just one directional. I was just getting the job done. I was very transactional. I wasn't really understanding the resources that I have around me, and I was not using those resources. So, how I would say we can fix this is, and how it changed my career was when I started thinking about the wisdom that I can get from people who have more experience than me, or people, no matter what job they are in, no matter whether they're the CEO of the company or they're still, in a managerial role for 10 years, it doesn't matter. What matters is that they have more experience than me, and there will always be one or two things that I can learn from that person. And I think it all comes down to perspective, and it is as simple as perspective. When people start seeing each other with a more or in a more positive light, that if I sit in this conversation, I am going to be able to get something out of there, right? Whether it's an older person speaking to someone younger or the other way around. And I think ever since I started doing that, my journey accelerated from 0 to 100 very quickly, and I can guarantee that will happen the same for other people when they start making the effort to really sit down and not judge people based on whether they're young or whether they're old, but also try to understand what is that their experience can offer you. So I think that is, one way and the simplest way to go about it.
I love that personal story because I think that adds a lot of validity to what you're saying because, you have gone through that and you are speaking to people, of course, across all generations in the work that you do. Do some workplaces just need to accept that workforces or peers or people that work in an organisation can't always see eye to eye or work together easily? How can we, I guess, realistically minimize, if not avoid, conflicts that we know that people are wired differently if they are from
Yeah.
different generations, but how do we actually make sure that the day-to-day is pretty harmonious?
Look, I think if you just accept it, then it's just all comfortable, right? You just go on with it, let people do what it is that they're doing. But I think workplaces should not accept it. As much as we all have our personal characteristics, there's also, a general agenda that we all can follow. So say for example, if everyone starts thinking about the other person more than they think about themselves, then the whole communication is going to become so much more easier. It's just a mindset, right? When you tell your employees that you come into work with a mindset that you're not going to sit there waiting for someone to make a comment, or support cancel culture, you can't say this, you can't do that, you can't do that, but make them feel comfortable that we are like a family and we are here to know each other better, right? That is when we can create a healthy workplace where you just accept people for who they are, but the question is how you deal with it. If you get to know, and then again there's another thing, and I usually notice that in a lot of, when you're going in and out of buildings or in elevators, people from the same company would not say hello to each other. They would not say good morning, good afternoon, nothing. They're just in the elevator, they don't have a conversation, they just do their job and go home. But really, if opposed to that, what you do is you go to work and you actually make relationships. So, this ex person that you think horribly about, if you know something more about that ex person than what you assume, you might be able to handle the conflict better. And you might not even have to go to your HR manager in the first place because you already are a little bit more understanding and are trying to see that person in a positive light. So I think rather than shifting the whole responsibility to the leadership team, to the HR team, people should start asking themselves as well as employees what it is that they're doing to make an effort, and are they even making an effort?
Yeah, and I think that's a really powerful point because we often then think, oh, we have to take this to the people and culture team, or we need to have a leadership ELT that kind of is activating this. But it sounds like it's up to everybody in a
Mhm.
workplace, no matter what your level is and your years of experience, to actually have those conversations. And I can actually see, I know in my own business,
Mhm.
those intergenerational workplace relationships, you can learn both ways. I definitely know that. It's not like I know everything and I don't
Yeah.
pretend I ever do. And it's lovely to get to know people at a personal level, but you also, from a career and business point of view, you can actually learn a lot from people from different generations, I find, and
Yeah.
understand them. I think that's the key.
And the old school tricks, if you're not going to sit with someone who has had that 10 years of experience, you might not know the job, but you're never going to know something that will make your job easier, or the really just the old school tricks, because they really help. And this is like another thing that I would say to anyone who's young right now, and given the workplace environment that we are right now, it's multi-generational, it's intergenerational, but also we're working from home, right? Which is okay if that's what you want, but you really have to ask yourself, how are you making up for that time? because you've already lost that time with different people at your workplace to build that relationship, or to get to know someone. Are you doing something else while you're not at work to try to get to know people? So I think that is another question that we have to ask ourselves, that all right, if we are asking for flexibility and if we are asking for choice, how are we making sure that we're making up for the time that we're losing with people around us? Because now it's complicated the whole communication gap even more, because everyone is just relying on Teams chat. No one's picking up the phone. No one's actually meeting people face to face, and really you don't really get to know each other. So it's just not making it simple.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I think that's great for us to kind of consider as we have this conversation today. How can we know if some of those tools which we are using in intergenerational communication have actually worked? So do we need to keep changing it up, or how do you kind of check in and make sure that all that good work, that effort, those meaningful connections are not going to waste? Do you have some ways in which we kind of, KPIs, if you like, we think about these
I
things
think
in
the first
business?
way, obviously, is always check with your people, your teams who are actually going through those phases and those changes. As to rather than in meetings, rather than asking about their performance and their productivity, you should also ask about how it is that they're feeling with different changes, or do they feel the need to talk to someone else in a different department, or how are they also putting in the effort. So I think the great way to check if it's actually working is if you check with people how are they making an effort, rather than saying that how are they feeling in the new environment. Because if you hold them accountable for their effort, then if it's working or not. Because if they're enjoying to make that effort, and they'd be happy to tell you how it's working as well. So I think that is one thing. And also you'd be able to see it yourself, because you'd be able to see that the whole workplace environment just changes, because everyone is a little bit more happier than they used to be. And you'll see it's a very natural process where people would be more inclined to see each other if the workplace is happier, everyone feels comfortable, and there is less intergenerational gap.
And we do know that, any business that has anything from, great diversity inclusion policies or sort of, flexible work, like harmonious workplaces do increase profits. There's lots of studies on that. So it makes good business sense as well as human sense, I think, to make sure this is a priority. What's your view on that?
As in,
Well, the idea that obviously if you do this well, it's actually better for business. I mean, there's proof that companies that,
yes.
have harmonious workplaces, lower staff turnover, higher profits. Are
Mhm.
they the sorts of things that you hear from your clients as well?
Yes, of course. If your employees are happy, and I think we've read it in every single business book, and we still tend to overlook it. Your people are your biggest asset. And if they're not happy, your business might be profitable in the short term, but it's not going to be profitable in the long term. And the only way to make other people happy is when they are part of creating that environment. Because what usually happens is happiness is mistaken for giving them perks, like free membership, which is all well and good. I'm not saying stop that, but also the inclusion involves people to be part of that environment. And when people feel that it's not just a business that they're working for, but it's their business, they are part of something bigger, and they are nurturing and creating that environment, then again, it's a natural process that there will always be profits. So investing in your people, investing in a healthy workplace is always great for business.
Excellent. Well, that's great advice. Changing tack a little bit, I have some questions which I ask all my guests, and this one is for you, is around your favorite business tool or hack at the moment. And it can't be your smartphone because we all have those and we love them. But is there something that you're using at the moment that's really helped you become more efficient or that you're really enjoying using? Do you want to share that with us?
I'm not sure if LinkedIn counts. I see it as a business tool because
Yep.
it is it is the one way to be visible. And I think I really enjoy my time using LinkedIn, and I do spend a good amount of time on LinkedIn every single day. And I think that it's a great business tool if you know how to use it. And if you are open
Absolutely.
to connecting with people, and if you are open to, really just being visible.
Yeah, I think you're right. So, yeah, lots of us love LinkedIn and it's a great place to connect as a business person. Your biggest life lesson, and what has it taught you?
Well, I think my biggest life lesson is I cannot do it alone. So for the longest time, I thought all I need was just me. I was very one directional. Not that I was, rude or arrogant or anything like that, but I didn't really spend the time to build relationships at workplace. So all I would do is I was that one person that you can rely on, that I will always deliver, and I will always make sure things happen. When we are in a problem, I will always have a solution. But with time, I realized that I cannot do everything alone. I need people, and the only thing that I will ever have left is the people I know and the people who know me. So I think that was the biggest lesson for me in life, and that's when I started investing more time and effort into getting to know more people than just being about my own personal goals.
I love that. And I think that makes you very wise for someone who is definitely of a younger generation. So thank you so much for sharing that. How do you define your version of success? It is different for different people. What makes you feel successful or know that you're successful?
I think I started feeling successful the minute I was able to contribute to someone else's life than just my own. And I think this is something that I would like to share with anyone out there who thinks that a position or power or money is the only thing that defines success. I don't think so. Because, if you're a parent and you're raising children, it's a big responsibility. You are definitely looking after more than just your own life. That is being successful in a lot of ways. And the same way, if you are contributing to your friends, to your relatives, to your family, or even helping people outside that, your colleagues or whatever that might be, I think that makes you successful. And for me, the definition of success is if you are able to contribute to more than what you are, and your life is bigger than just you are successful. And I can say I'm pretty successful.
That's great. Excellent. I love that. A final message for us today on the politics of intergenerational workplaces. Just a lasting thought for everyone who's listening.
Try to understand and don't judge, because judgment is disrespecting someone even without disrespecting them.
I love that. So powerful. And of course, if you want to connect further, there will be some details on the show notes. Until next time, thank you so much for your time. Thanks so much for listening today. If you've enjoyed the politics of everything, I thrive on your feedback. So please add a short review and share the podcast with your network through Apple, Spotify, and all the usual suspects. I'm always on the hunt for new and diverse guests. So if you or someone you know has a fresh idea you're busting to get out there, please email me at amber@amberdanes.com and my crew will get back to you very soon.